Maybe you should focus less on fining players for commenting on your poor officiating and more about hiring officials that are capable to call a consistent game.
One photo turned an ordinary drive into a WNBA conspiracy. A single frame, Bria Hartley glancing back, lips curling, and what the internet swore was a grin, became the spark that set the league on fire. But that snapshot didn't tell the whole story. The collision, the fallout, the comeback, and the voices that followed did. Today, we're unpacking what really happened to Sophie Cunningham, why that image hit like a match in a dry season, and how one night flipped from panic to a historic win. Buckle up, the truth moves fast. It looked like a routine drive until it wasn't. Hartley cut into the lane at a strange angle, momentum carrying her straight into Sophie's planted leg. Contact, a tangle. Then Sophie dropped, hands flying to her knee before anyone could process what went wrong. The arena noise thinned to a hush, the kind that makes you hear sneakers squeak and breath hitch. Teammates froze. Trainers broke into a sprint. On the broadcast, the replays felt slower than real time. Each frame a reminder that sometimes the worst injuries don't look cinematic at all. They just arrive blunt and unfair. The next update hit like a cold splash. Tests confirmed an MCL tear. Season over.
Bria Hartley.
The only good thing positive surrounding Sophie Cunningham coming out of this game, she looked in good spirits in the locker room.
No cushion, no maybes, no we'll see in a week. Just a hard line drawn across everything Indiana thought this stretch was going to be. Rotations changed instantly. Roles got heavier. The Fever had to recalibrate in real time emotionally and on the whiteboard, without a player who sets their edge. And here's the twist. The clip that traveled the farthest wasn't the collision. It was what came after, the single frame that would ignite the internet and rewrite the night. One screenshot did what a dozen replays couldn't. It wrote a villain. Sophie on the hardwood, trainers rushing in, and Hartley glancing back with what looked at first glance like a grin. Pause, zoom, crop, share. In seconds, the still was everywhere, stripped of context and armed with captions that did the rest. Feeds didn't argue the mechanics of the collision, they argued a face. Intent got tried in the court of a freeze frame. That's how the internet works. Motion becomes a meme. A split-second expression becomes a narrative. People slowed the clip to quarter speed, convinced a micro twitch meant everything. Some swore it was a smirk. Others said it looked like a pain face, a grimace mid-breath. The truth got buried under engagement. Accounts you'd never seen before turned into amateur officials, seizing that one image as proof positive of a dirty play. And once the label sticks, each share hardens it. Threads pulled in old moments, past scuffles, anything to strengthen the case. Not because it proves intent, but because it fits the story. The screenshot started. That's what made the night feel bigger than a bad step. The image wasn't just viral, it was persuasive. But then the loudest voice in the room wasn't a ref or a reporter, it was family. And their response didn't cool things off, it lit the next fuse. The next voice wasn't a league memo, it was blood. Sophie's sister jumped on X and unloaded, blasting the inconsistency of the whistles and the league's priorities.
I believe this is Mama C. Hartley is a disgruntled player having trouble everywhere she goes. She's playing mean and plays out of control.
Less energy on fining players for speaking up, more energy on protecting them. Point made, no sugar. That post traveled because it said out loud what fans had been muttering for months. If the standard changes by quarter, players pay the price in bruises, techs, and this time ligaments. Screenshots spread, replies piled up, and suddenly the smirk discourse morphed into a bigger indictment. What does protection actually look like? People weren't just arguing intent anymore. They were asking why the game didn't stop faster, why borderline plays skate by one night and draw flags the next. Coaches have hinted at it, players have eaten fines for it. Now a family member was saying the quiet part at full volume. It stung because it felt true.
Bria Hartley has privated all her social media accounts. Now this is coming off.
Anyone who's watched enough of this season can point to nights where let them play becomes let it get sloppy. And sloppy is when ankles twist and knees give. Lindsey's post hit those nerves precisely because it wasn't packaged like PR. It read like a sister who's seen enough. But the part nobody expected came next. The most important voice didn't escalate the fire. It redirected it. Sophie stepped in, directed, composed, and ready to split the difference between anger and accuracy. And what she said next flipped the narrative on its head. Sophie didn't slip into silence. She posted 3 words built for a scoreboard and a comment section. Feck around and find out. Short, sharp, a line in the sand for anyone questioning her toughness or her team's spine.
Pissed off. Not only are we getting assaulted, but they're smiling about it.
It wasn't aimed at Hartley, it was aimed at the noise. Then she did the unexpected. On her podcast, Sophie cooled the temperature and stood up for Bria Hartley. No hedges, no legalese. She said there was no ill intent, that it was a basketball play gone wrong, and that the two are genuinely cool off the court. She even told her own mom, whose post went viral, to take it down. That's not common in a storm like this. Most people add fuel. Sophie brought water. The message landed because it carried two truths at once. You can fight for better protection and still refuse to turn a rival into a villain. That balance, defiant to the trolls, generous to the opponent, recentered the story around what matters. Recovery, accountability, and the team still on the floor. And that team, they still had a game to finish. What happened next didn't just answer the moment, it flipped the night on its head.
Sophie Cunningham was targeted. Let's be very, very clear here.
Everything pointed one way down. 21 points on the wrong side of the scoreboard. No Sophie, no Caitlin. The kind of gap that turns fourth quarters into formality. Indiana refused. Kelsey Mitchell came out of halftime like the shot clock owed her money, piling bucket after bucket until the arena's noise changed shape. 38 by the end, 34 after the break. Every make felt like a lifeline yanked a little closer to shore. Odyssey Sims took the wheel when nerves wanted it most. Fewer wasted dribbles, cleaner entries, possessions that ended with shots you can live with. When emotion spiked, she lowered the heartbeat. When the pace got messy, she tightened it. That's how rallies survive. The chaos gets tamed before it eats you. Inside, Aliyah Boston turned the paint into her address. Boards that stop second chances. Seals that create easy angles. Quiet points that break a defense's back one possession at a time. Her timing changed runs from hopeful to real. Suddenly, loose balls belonged to Indiana. Rotations looked sharper. Closeouts felt a step quicker. The deficit didn't vanish in a rush, it eroded, bucket by stubborn bucket. By the time overtime arrived, the body language told the story. One team clung, the other hunted. Indiana closed it out 99-93, the kind of finish that rewrites a night you were supposed to survive into a night you'll retell. Largest comeback in franchise history, not a stat in identity. When the season tried to cave in, they built a roof. The win didn't bury the discourse, it made it louder. Because when a team fights like that, people go looking for villains, patterns, and motives. And that's where the freeze frame turned into a microscope turned on Bria Hartley. When one moment explodes online, people start connecting dots. Fans stitched older clips to the new freeze frame, scrums under the glass, tangled arms, hard fouls that turned into barking matches, and called it a pattern. In a season this intense, there's no shortage of grainy evidence. Elbows that look worse in slow motion, hands that linger in a jersey, tempers that flare a beat too long. Stack enough of those next to a single photo and the conclusion writes itself. But sports are messy. Contact creates ugly screenshots. A heated possession can look calculated when you pause it at the right millisecond. That doesn't rewrite intent. It explains why the narrative took off. Not because there's a verdict, but because the images fit a story people already wanted to tell. And once that story lands, every shoulder bump gets treated like a case file. If you're judging by vibes, the pattern feels obvious. If you're judging by what's official, it's murkier. The league hasn't branded the play as dirty. Sophie herself shut that door. The gap between those two realities, that's where outrage lives. But feelings don't make policy, which is why the next question matters more than any screenshot. What's confirmed, and what's just the echo of a viral moment? Here's the clean line between what happened and what people think happened. Confirmed, Sophie tore her MCL. She's done for the season. Indiana won the game behind a furious rally. Those are facts on paper, not up for debate. Also confirmed, the image that blew up was real, but a still frame isn't a confession. Sophie herself said she doesn't believe there was malice. She called it a basketball play gone wrong and asked people to cool it on blaming Hartley. That's the injured player talking, and her word carries weight. Now the gray zone, the smirk became a symbol, not evidence. Family posts hit the gas on the officiating debate, loud, emotional, and understandable. But social media isn't a ruling. Talk of suspensions, secret investigations, and players going into hiding, lives in rumor country unless the league stamps it. Until there's a statement, it's noise with good views. So the scoreboard reads like this: injury, official, comeback, official, intent, unproven, outrage, abundant. Screenshots can build a story, they can't finish it. If policy changes or penalties land, they'll land in writing, not in a comments thread. And that leads to the only question worth asking after the dust settles. What do we actually learn from a night like this about safety, about narrative, about how fast a photo can bend the truth? That's the part that lingers long after the clip stops looping. One still image tried to write the whole story. It almost did. A freeze frame turned into a verdict, and a collision became a character study. But the facts didn't bend. Sophie's season ended on a bad step. Indiana answered with grit and a comeback that rewired the night, and the injured player herself told everyone to stop hunting a villain. That leaves the bigger truth. The league has a problem when inconsistency becomes part of the show. Players shouldn't have to choose between speaking up and getting fined. Fans shouldn't need viral clips to feel heard. Clearer standards, faster stoppages when a player is down. Transparent reviews when contact turns costly. That's how you protect athletes and cool the outrage before it curdles. The rest is on us. Are we judging intent from pixels because it's easy? Are we sharing screenshots that flatter our bias and calling it justice? A season is more than a pause button. It's motion, context, and voices that don't agree. Sophie asked for nuance. That's rare online. It's also right. So what sticks after the clip stops looping? The reminder that a team can rise while the discourse drags. The idea that safety and accountability don't need a villain to exist. And the question that won't go away. When the next hard play hits the timeline, do we rush to label or wait to learn?